Now we want to, like I said, we want to raise the standards, improve the quality of the projects that we do and implement for the people in Yemen. People have got a misconception about what a Muslim is. Big beard, aggressive, rude, or whatever, all the sort of things that come with it. It's upon us to change that. We need to show that we're peaceful people, we're loving people, we're there to help people. So it's down to us to really show that positive image. So it all happened literally within a few weeks of each other. My friend dying, finding out my wife was expecting, and my dad says, look, you'll have to forget about uni. It's like, being thrown into the deep end. You either sink or swim, right? And you have to try and find ways to survive. Sometimes it's by making ends meet month to month, year to year, and you just find a way.
But what's your thoughts if there's so many people that are, like, let's say, that are doing something which they don't like, and whatever that may be, right? It's comfortable, where they can still ride the wave, they're still paying, each month they're working paycheck to paycheck, but they want to do more though, if that makes sense. How do they do that transition of, like, is it a mental thing, would you say? Is it a mindset thing?
I saw some of the people there and I thought, it's sad. They don't think bigger than this. They're just thinking that they have to earn a living. This is the only salary they're going to get, and they're going to stick with it even though they're sad about being here. If you're not happy and you're not really feeling fulfilled and you're not satisfied where you're at, who is forcing you to stay in that situation? We're not helping younger people. You may have a whole generation of young people who are just shut off from society, behind a computer screen, and just shut off from everybody and not being able to interact in society.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to episode 7 of Mumkin Motivation. Today is a very good and special episode. The studio itself is based in Birmingham, and again we've got our brother who's, I think it's the first one where the guest itself is also from Birmingham. So hopefully we're going to learn a lot about the communities within Birmingham, the different places. Again, born and raised in Alam Rock, then you moved to Hodge Hills. He's got leadership experience within Green Lane Masjid, one of the biggest masjids for Eid gatherings, but then also a lot of leadership experiences within directing charities. So Jazakallah khair for coming on.
Really appreciate it. No problem.
How are you keeping?
Yeah, no, happy to be here. Happy to come and support the podcast and the good work you're doing. So alhamdulillah, thank you for inviting me.
It's good because, like, a lot of the times, you're given your time. You're busy. You've got a job. Especially in your case, you're a father and a grandfather. So Allah Mubarak, So you're very busy. You've got a very busy schedule. But this is what I love. That if we're able to all work together, if we're able to support each other, it makes a big difference. Yeah. So I really do appreciate that you coming on.
No, alhamdulillah. I've done lots of media in the past. For example, at Green Lane, during COVID, I was one of the few people working on site. So, I was put in front of the cameras, and, there was a lot of responsibility to do that. And over the years, various events and activities where I've had to be in front of the media. And to be honest, it does get a bit tiring after a while, and you sort of feel like, let somebody else do it now, sort of thing. So, when I saw your podcast and when I received the message from you, I don't know, for some reason I just thought, let me help the brother out. Let me come on, and why not? Why not, sort of thing. And it's good to see Muslim entrepreneurs. It's good to see Muslims supporting each other. You give a platform for people to come on here and give them a voice, and likewise in return, you get to also promote the good work you're doing and support the people that come on. So why not? We're an ummah, not just globally. I know there's a lot of focus normally on the ummah globally being one body, and sometimes we forget people at home. We need to support each other. Sometimes you look outside of our community and say, look at those people, they support each other, they look after each other. So we should do the same, right? We should try and help each other wherever we can.
And you're right, bang on there. There is a lot of that where, the more we uplift each other, the better it is going to be for, one another, right? And especially in this podcast, normally what we do is we'll talk about, the entire sort of experiences, your experiences. But for everyone here that are watching this, tuning in, if you're still early on in your career, you're thinking about being in leadership positions, but also juggling it with family life. This is the podcast for it. There's going to be a lot of things that we're going to learn here. I'm the first person that's going to learn here, and again, coming from different products of your environment and how that can shape you. So yeah, let's take it. Let's take it all the way
Inshallah.
back.
Inshallah.
Bismillah. And yeah, I want to talk about. So you born in Birmingham, is that
Born in
correct?
Birmingham. Always lived in
Right.
Birmingham. Tried a few times over the years to think about moving away, but no, it's. I think it's meant to be. I'm supposed to be here, inshallah.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, who knows what happens in the future, but family all here. Work has always been here, studied here.
What's your parents like then? Did they come here early on? Did they
Yeah,
come,
yeah. So my mom's from Tanzania.
right?
She came here when I think she was about 9 years old, 10 years old. My father came from Pakistan when he was similar age, and yeah, so they were both from a totally different places.
Which is good for you though, because
Yeah.
you've come from a mix.
Mm,
A lot of people, I'll be honest with you,
Yeah.
they hold it with their chest that I am this, I am that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
For you, especially, it's like, you're very open-minded in a sense, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
my mom's made sure of that. You'll probably hear me speak about my mom quite
it's good.
quite a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah,
But
amazing. Yeah.
she, and the thing is, Tanzania is a very diverse place, especially Dar es Salaam, the city where she came from, because you have indigenous Africans there, you have an Indian population there, Omanis, Arabs from there. Over the years, you've seen Europeans come there. The British colonized it, Germany, etc. So I think that's been part of her upbringing. She was brought up around different religions, different cultures, different colors, and that stuck with her. So she'll always say, I don't like people putting me in a box, or having to tick a box because I'm everything, and that sort of stuck with us. And alhamdulillah, further down the line, when you learn about your deen and you realize that there's no such thing as races, we shouldn't be racist, and there's no such thing as superior races in Islam. You realize, actually, the lesson she learned when she was younger is from the deen anyway. So I'm always happy that I come from a mixed background, and you can celebrate the positives of both, and criticize each other about the things that aren't so good.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to touch up on
Yeah.
this quite later on in the podcast. But racism in general, right? It starts a lot in the family house. In
Yeah.
that, how do we communicate with each other? Especially because your brother, your sister, mom, dad, we're very open with them, right?
Yeah.
And it's more of a protective sort of closed environment where it's like okay to say what you want to say, right? But especially like that is it's amazing because like if you're in a house or environment where where it's like no, it's not right to be be like racist or like not even racist, but even like to give your judgments, right? In certain situations, it kind of like allows you to make very good decisions and allows you to act very differently and allows you to network with or connect with different people without everyone being very tribal. Do you,
Yeah,
do you see that quite a bit?
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm smiling because there was one occasion where a brother came to visit me, practicing brother, elder brother, and he came to visit me, and he saw a relative in my house, and he said to me, he said, Saleem, what's that kafir doing in your house?
Yeah.
He was my uncle. He was my mom's brother.
His own brother.
Black guy. And it just goes to show, like, the sort of like the prejudice, etc. And and that guy, he's a top brother. You'd give your life for that, to look, to defend that brother. But it's just his upbringing. He was brought up
He's a
in a
nation in a
predominantly
sense,
Pakistani household and community, and his way of thinking was, you can't really be a Muslim if you're black, sort of thing. That was a subconscious thinking.
Of course.
But in reality, we've got, like, for example, in my family, we've got, the blackest of black. We've got, cousins who are really white. They've got Dutch fathers and Tanzanian mothers. Within my siblings, we all look different to each other. It's the mix of genes, etc. So, it's been interesting growing up to see, growing up in school, for example, in secondary school, all my friends were Asian. But I had a good connection with the black Afro-Caribbeans, the Jamaicans. But, because I didn't look like them, I was more closer to the Pakistani kids in school. But there was always like mutual respect with me and the black kids. However, with my friends, the Pakistani friends, there was always that divide between them and the Jamaicans. So, it was interesting growing up and experiencing that. And then when I'd go home, you'd have a mixed environment. You'd have black people, Asian people eating together. We were family, brothers and sisters, cousins. So for me, it was never an issue. There was never an issue where, I felt threatened or there was any fear of any of the races because it was all part of my family anyway.
Me, so I'm Indian, but
Mm,
Gujarati and
mm,
Muslim. But the reason why I say that is because I've seen it so much too. By the way, yeah, where they'll ask me, "Oh, what are you?" And I say, "You're Pakistani, right?" So I say,
mm.
"No, I'm Indian." I say, "Oh, you're Muslim." So, yeah, I'm Muslim. And they're surprised, they're shocked.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, I would say, it doesn't even come from a harmful way.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
just the
Yeah.
education that's
Mm,
there or the awareness
mm,
that they might not have and they lack.
yeah.
So once we say that we're exactly the same, we'll play
Mm,
exactly the same. There's going to be no difference here, and then they start being a bit more chill out, where
yeah.
they start understanding it a bit more.
Mm,
But yeah, so Alam Rock is
mm.
that? So what? So how many years were you there? And was education a big focus for you? Was that your
Yeah,
family
yeah.
pushed
So
that?
so Alam Rock, my dad was a businessman. He ran a taxi company, and we were there until I was 5 years old. So have a few memories of when I was there, before we moved. My mom worked in the school. She worked in as a in the play group, and Alum Rock, it just seemed like a normal place to be. I don't think there were the levels of crime and violence that happen now, um, but obviously my parents wanted to move to a better place, a better area, and at that time, Hodge Hill was, there was very few non-white families living there. I think we were like the third or fourth in that local area.
What made you guys move there though? Because people wouldn't people would be a bit
Not, I think
hesitant,
I think it was nicer houses.
of
I
course.
think in Alum Rock we lived in a very small terraced house. So at that time it was three of us, as in my siblings, me, two older sisters, myself, and my mom and dad. So it was a small house, and the house we moved to was, mashallah, it was. I still remember when we went house hunting, and we would sit in the car, and we'd drive around, and it would be like amazing. You'd be like looking at Buckingham Palace. The houses, they were so different compared to Alum Rock, and I remember. But then at the same time, the houses seemed like quite old, as in like the design of them, and even when I remember the smell of going into some of the houses, and didn't smell like Alum Rock. So it was an interesting experience. But yeah, it was the houses really. I think the quality, and the areas, they had
Yeah.
no shops there. It's still like it was very green at the time, lots more trees, and it was a lot nicer to visit. Parts of it still are, most of it still is, but I think that was the main motivating factor, was just moving to a nicer house.
And Dad, would you wear a lot of the cultured like Islamic attire? Would you say like Goffney's job was?
No, no, no.
She
So,
wouldn't.
so in fact, at that time, my family weren't really, you wouldn't say, a practicing family. So that came later on in life. But yeah, no, no. My dad would wear shirt and trousers, for work. He owned the business, and his drivers obviously would wear salwar kameez and traditional clothing. And growing up, seeing how the business was running, and seeing how the taxi drivers were treated whilst working, and discriminated against. That was again part of my upbringing and experiences. But yeah, he just looked like anybody else. Trousers and shirt. Same with my mom.
Yeah, a lot of people that go from those environments, such as
Mm,
Alam Rock,
mm,
your the culture that's there stays with you, the way you act,
mm,
the way you operate, the
mm,
way you think. But then moving to Hodge Hills, was your dad already in a certain way because he had a business,
mm,
successful business?
yeah.
Would you have said like the way you were brought up was completely different to like a typical person that was born in Alam Rock, or would you say
Yeah,
not
I
really?
think our upbringing was different. One, because my mom, was different, and she was very outspoken and forward thinking, and she wanted to help women in the community who were basically stuck at home. They'd bring their kids to the school. There'd be case of domestic violence, or mental health issues, and my mom would notice that, recognize that, and she actually recommended to the school that she could play the part of connecting between the community and the school.
Really? Yeah.
So she became a community link worker. So at home she was always ambitious. She always wanted to be to defend others. My father was a businessman, busy with work, and it wasn't the traditional sort of like Asian household where the mom stays at home, is the housewife, traditional housewife with the traditional clothes. The father going out to work and maybe wearing traditional clothes. My dad was a businessman, like I said, and I think he interacted a lot with non-Muslims, especially in the line of work. Taxis, if you can imagine, there were lots more pubs and places, social clubs and stuff like that where people would frequent. So he was always around non-Muslims and not just Pakistanis. So I think that played a part in how they were as people as well.
Of
So when
course.
we moved to Hodge Hill, there wasn't a massive, culture clash. Of course, our food was different, our customs were different, but I think they managed to fit in quite well and assimilate quite well.
Yeah, and I think that makes a big difference.
Mm.
Um, in terms of what were you up to then? Were you studying? Were you at what age were you then when you moved
So
to
I was
Algiers?
5. I was very, very young.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
fine. You're
yeah.
very
It was
young.
only when we were 5. I remember going to the primary school, Bromford Primary School, it was called back then. And again, like there was very few colored faces, Asians or black children. I remember there's a couple of Sikh children, couple of Muslim children, but you could count them on your hands. All the teachers were elderly white teachers or some young white teachers. And again, the area was predominantly white, so it was quite a young age that we moved there.
Of course.
Yeah, it was a new experience.
We see a lot of that right now online, especially on social media. So they say don't get a lot of your information from social media,
Mm,
especially in the comment section.
yeah.
But we do see a lot of um, you could say a bit of racism. But I don't know if you're familiar with
Mm.
GB News. Are you
Yeah,
familiar?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I think there's a journalist that went there
Mm,
recently, and he walked around my local area actually,
yeah.
and he was asking people. I don't know if you've
They've
seen
done
that
it in
video.
Alam Rock as well.
They've done it there
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just asking people that
Mm,
basically, what's your thoughts on that? Is it from what I've seen? It's like they want to know. A lot of the people here,
mm,
they're so far away from us, from our culture.
mm,
They're not integrating into the society,
yeah.
and if a polite person is just asking you,
Mm,
or no one's giving them a day, the day of
mm.
time. But what's your thoughts on that?
On people how they respond when
Yeah, exactly.
I, I think growing up in Hodge Hill around white people, predominantly white people, there was a lot more. I would say there was a community spirit. People would smile at each other, say hello to each other. Neighbors would go and talk to each other. And my family are still in that area. They still live there. I've moved out of Hodge Hill, but my family are still there. And most of the neighbors are Asian neighbors now. They don't talk to each other. Everybody's does their own thing. No, there's no real community spirit. I remember when we were younger, there used to be a neighborhood watch scheme. I don't know if you've ever heard of
I
that.
haven't. Yeah.
Yeah, so that just shows, neighborhood watch was just basically everybody used to have it on their windows saying we're part of the neighborhood watch scheme. So they would have meetings where the neighbors would come together and talk about any issues that they've had on their road. They'd do parties together. They'd look out for each other, and there'd just be a bit more community spirit. It was almost like looking after your own area, policing your own area, sort of thing, and also being friends with each other. And over the years, that's gone. So in Hodge Hill, for example, everybody just does their own thing. Unless you've got a family who've moved like next door and bought the house next door,
Mm.
you don't really talk to the neighbors. So that's something that's gone missing, and it's sad because it should be the opposite. As Muslims, we should really be looking after each other and being the rights of the neighbor, giving your rights to the neighbor, etc. So I think that's and walking up and down Alam Rock Road, or in Muslim areas, it's a bit sad because the younger generation, you don't see them really like giving salams to each other or smiling at each other. And I make it a point, like I'm trying to lose weight, so I go on walks a lot nowadays, and it's sad because you give salam to people and they just like they don't even acknowledge you. They'll
Just minding their own business.
just literally just ignore you, and you're thinking that's not everybody. There are some good people who you'll give salam or they'll initiate the salam first, and it's a nice feeling, but it's rare. It's not like the norm. It's not like the norm, like how it was in Hodge Hill when we were growing up around white people. It was second nature. I mean, I went for a walk the other day in an area called Stetchford. There's a park connected there, and again, probably more white people there. And as I was walking through, lots of elderly white people. Good morning. How are you? You okay? How's your walk? Sort of thing. You wouldn't get that from the Muslim community. That's a real shame.
I've noticed the exact same thing. So basically, I've moved in a similar area to like Hodge Hills, but in Leicester.
Yeah.
Um, and when I walk outside, a lot, I see a lot of people. They do look at me. So it's not Asians, of course, it's white English people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But and they look at me, and it's not, of course for them it's like it's quite new. There's not a lot of us in that area at the moment, and but then I just say to them, oh, like good morning, good afternoon, good evening,
Yeah.
and then straight away they get really happy, they get really excited, and I think they want to, to a certain degree, they try to suss you out, like
Yeah.
see what kind of person you are,
Yeah. Yeah.
see how friendly you are, and it is, the manners are there from them, isn't it?
And this is our dawah to them, that we should be friendly people, we should be welcoming, we shouldn't give anybody a reason to fear us or suspect us. I don't really care too much about the suspicion part of things, but we should be welcoming. If people have got a misconception about what a Muslim is, big beard, aggressive, rude, or whatever, all the sort of things that come with it, then it's upon us to change that. We need to show that, we're peaceful people, we're loving people, we're there to help people, so it's down to us to really show that positive image.
Yeah, you're right. I think about this a lot about education and degrees, right? Where right now, if you ask most families, right, the kids they study and they're going to university. If you ask them why they study the course that they're doing, they just don't know too.
Yeah.
And there is that element of they just like get a degree, it'll be good for you, you can get a job, right? Improves that stability, essence of it. In your case, degrees, it's not that it was less, but they were more valued. Where right now it's incredibly competitive. Were you in a situation where you were 19, 20, where you went to university straight away, or were you working? How was that like?
No, my story was a bit different to most of my friends. After secondary school, I think it was at that point I decided I wanted to get married. I didn't want to go through the whole process of. I still wanted to work. I still wanted to study, but I was very keen on getting married. And it wasn't like I was a practicing Muslim back then, but I saw the way certain people who I was around, friends, etc., who were in gangs, and they'd have girlfriends, and I just didn't like the idea of having girlfriends. I just didn't, I thought to myself, if I'm going to find a woman to be my companion, I want her to be my wife and only mine, and I want to live the rest of my life, with that person. And again, like I said, I wasn't a practicing person back then, but it just didn't appeal to me to go through that whole lifestyle of studying, working, girlfriends, this and that. So yeah, very early on, I decided I wanted to get married, and then it was my choice. And then I found somebody who I wanted to get married to. So by the age of 18, I was married, and I think it was a few things happened in the first few months after marriage. Again, I wasn't practicing when I first got married. One of my friends, or he was a close friend in secondary school, but he was a bit of a gangster, and sadly, he got involved with drugs, and he was involved in a car crash and he died. So he was only 18, and I remember going to his janaza, and I just thought to myself, wow, like that could be any of us. His time's gone, and something clicked in my head, and I remember trying to appeal to my friends who again weren't practicing either, to say, lads, we need to do something. We need to change our ways. We need to, we all brought up in Muslim households, but we weren't like, proper on our deen sort of thing, as you'd say. And around the same time, I found out my wife was expecting.
Right.
So it all happened literally within a few weeks of each other. My friend dying, finding out my wife was expecting. And my dad says, look, you'll have to forget about uni. I was actually going to start my degree whilst being married, and my dad said, no, you're gonna have to work now. You're gonna have to work. So I basically turned down the offer to go to university, and I went straight into work. So that was how it started. And then within a year, as I mentioned, we had a son. I went for Hajj around the same time. Started practicing, met some really good brothers. Started being involved in dawah activities, like street stalls and stuff like that. So it was a different experience to what most of my friends had. I only went to university later on, but when I think I was 28. Um,
What
and
made
at that point,
yeah
I had 3 kids.
yeah mashallah, 3 kids. I was gonna say when I was 18, and during that time I wasn't mature at all. So
Mm,
it took me quite a few years where like I started having more responsibilities and things
mm,
like that. But for you, you
mm,
had the trauma, so the incident that happened,
mm.
and then so was that the thing that actually changed you completely, or was it the responsibilities at the same time?
Yeah, I would say it was a combination of both, but definitely, my friend name, may Allah have mercy on him. He that really, I would say that was a
Affected you?
pivotal moment in my life. Seeing my friend who, he always felt he was invincible. You hear about lads in school and taking on everybody and fighting everybody. He had that sort of like Scarface mentality that he was ready to take on the world and he didn't care what was going to happen to him. And sadly, he wasn't invincible, and everybody has somebody who's more powerful and stronger than them, and his life was cut short because of it, and that was a big eye opener for me. Something just clicked, and like I said, then hearing I was going to have a son, hearing I was going to have a child, it really made me think I need to change here. Something, there's a message being given to me somehow. Alhamdulillah, and the more I spent time with good brothers, uh, it all made sense why it was all happening. Why things happen in life, why things go wrong. Why you're tested with certain things when you're given responsibilities. How, and learning about the Muslims of the past, the companions. May Allah be pleased with them all. They were young men. They were young men who conquered lands and who went and spread the deen, and people who had big responsibilities at a very young age. So a lot of my Islamic education was centered around, young people your age were far more mature back then. They achieved far more than what young people your age are achieving now. So for me, it was sort of like, what, this makes sense to me. And also my father, my mom and dad got married when they were young. My dad was 18 as well. So I was always aware that, or I it wasn't abnormal to me to get married at that age because my dad did it when he was that young. And again, my son who got married when he was 18 as well. So that's why I'm a young grandfather now. So it was normal for us, and it seemed right. It all seemed right that those responsibilities had been given to me at that age. And I think it was, yeah, literally when my first son was born, a couple of months later, we moved out. So we started renting. Normally you hear, okay, young couple get married, they stay at home with their family. I actually moved out, because at that time, I think I was quite passionate about practicing my deen, and my family weren't used to it. And it became a bit of a sort of clash where I needed to move away.
Being a father, three
Mm,
kids, at the age of 28,
mhm,
like I've seen so many stories, right, where
mm,
there's so many people like that, let's say they go through the family route, for them to come back to be like, oh, I want to study again,
mm.
I want to go back to school, like where does that come from?
It's actually down to a good brother, a friend of mine, who, I was moving between periods of unemployment. I was quite comfortable because I was involved in dawah activities, and it was nice to be able to travel up and down the country and give dawah to people, and then alternating between that and then temporary roles or jobs where I didn't really feel like there was, they seemed dead end jobs. I mean, they're good jobs, but it didn't seem like I was going to progress any further. um, and good brother, an brother who was a bit older than me, he advised me to go and do a course, go back to university and do something that will benefit the ummah. Again, I was surrounded by good practicing brothers, brothers who wanted good for me and wanted me to contribute to the ummah as well.
And was
uh,
that the solution then? Which was, sorry, I just meant
yeah,
like going from the family house to
yeah,
then you renting it,
yeah.
where you're trying to make sure that product of your environment.
Mm,
It's so important to get the right environment, and then you
mm,
made a lot of good friends.
yeah,
They
yeah,
influenced you a lot then. So
yeah, yeah. They influenced me a lot, and you know, uh, as an independent guy at that time, I'd moved out. of home when I was 19, with a little one, baby, started renting, and, looking for work, trying to find ways to earn a living. And, by the time I got to 28, and, those good brothers who had helped educate me, from an Islamic point of view, they were also supportive, in terms of my future, etc. And, they said, look, it's all well and good, attending the talks, doing the dawah stalls, but, why, do something that's going to benefit the ummah, and I was advised to do engineering, and that could open up doors where I could, go and work anywhere in the world, and, and help to develop things, etc. So, I decided to do a degree in engineering, but because I didn't have a strong sort of like mathematical background in A levels, I had to do like a foundation year, which was like a fast track sort of like a intense course. So alhamdulillah, I completed that first, then went straight into the degree. And yeah, my wife was very supportive. She was looking after the kids whilst I was, going to lectures, and I was, doing my coursework at night, late at night, etc. So there was sacrifices to be made, but when I look back at it now, it's definitely the right thing to do. It's whilst I didn't go into engineering, it's benefited me a lot, in my professional life, and just even, helped me to gain experiences I wouldn't have otherwise got.
So was that 4 years, if I'm correct? Because 1 year was foundation, 3 years was the bachelor's. Is that correct?
That's correct,
So
yeah.
that's four
Yeah.
full years,
And
it's
then I did a
full-time, isn't it?
master's after that.
So you did 5 years
Yeah.
of full-time education
Yeah.
whilst having 3 kids, right? And
Yeah.
a full family.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what about those responsibilities? They're not going to disappear if you want to go study. So what happened to those? Were you still working then?
Yeah, so I was having to work part time. At that time they had, maintenance grants, etc. Things, to help people study. I think it was obviously tuition fees were lower back then. They had lots more support in terms of grants, etc. I did that as well as working part time. We were able to at that time again claim child tax credit. I don't know what it is now because I can't claim it. But there was child tax credits. There was working tax credits and all of that. So it helped to top up. So, and then where I needed to, I'd borrow money from family and friends. So you find a way, if you have a goal, and a vision, that you're going to commit to something, other things fall into place or you make it happen. You're sort of like, it's like, being thrown into the deep end, you either sink or swim, right? And, you have to try and find ways to survive. Sometimes it's by making ends meet, month to month, year to year, and you just find a way. You find a way because you know that, okay, what is the alternative? Okay, I quit my studies, I'm 1 year in, things are financially difficult, I quit, or I stick with it because I intended to do it and I'm going to go for it and I'm going to achieve it, because at the end of it comes the benefit of being a qualified engineer, being able to provide for my family, being able to do something positive for the ummah. So, that was an example of where you have a goal and you work towards it regardless of what, else comes. And that's happened many times in my life, before university, after university, recently, where, you have to, be resilient, you have to be determined, and you don't always have to stick with the plan. Sometimes what we want, isn't always what Allah wants, right? I think that's been a sort of like something which has been a pattern in my life, is where there's been times where I really want something, really want
We've
something.
all been there.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah.
And almost to the point where you're stubborn and you don't listen to anybody else, and then Allah shows you that's not for you. What I have planned for you is something different.
Yeah.
So and my mom always sets me straight and says, Saleem, you've always been stubborn. Even as a kid, you always wanted things your way, and Allah shows you a different path. And in hindsight, you look back and you think, alhamdulillah, I'm glad Allah made that happen for me, or I'm glad Allah didn't let that happen for me, because I may have been in a worse off situation.
So they'll be able to see from the previous podcast where I was actually sitting in the guest seat,
Yeah.
and the host, I had a brother on, and Zubair, and he was amazing. Where he was asking me questions
Yeah.
about sort of my life and like my education, my work experiences. One of the things that I touched upon was being in the comfort zone is foreign to me. But of course, everything that you're saying is exactly the same. But there's so many like viewers here because that's what we want to get out the podcast,
Yeah.
where they could get their learnings from that. And you've already given very good advices. But what's your thoughts if like there's so many people that are like, let's say, that are doing something which they don't like, and whatever that may be, right? And but then it's comfortable where they can still ride the wave. They can, they're still paying, each month they're working paycheck to paycheck, but they want to do more though, if that makes sense. How do they do that transition of like, is it a mental thing? Would you say is it a mindset thing?
I think it's a mindset thing. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking about when I used to work in Birmingham City Council tax call centre. Now, again, halal income for people, if they're doing that job and they're providing for their families, may Allah reward them. But I would see lots of people working around me who were in that job. I was doing it part time because I was trying to earn a living while studying, but I could see other people who were doing it as a 9 to 5 sort of thing. They were depressed, they were stressed, they didn't like it, they were sick of speaking to people on the phones. You'd have people calling in complaining, oh, why have I received a council tax reminder or a warning or a court summons, etc. And it was just like, it just felt really miserable. And the people that were there weren't happy. Most of them weren't happy. Even those who had moved into positions of leadership, they didn't seem very happy about being there. And when I was in that environment, I just thought to myself, I can't stay. I have to stick with my degree. I have to stick with studying. I have to stick with, I'm meant to do something more than this. And again, it's not to put down anybody who does it, because they're out there, they're going there every day, having to log in before your shift starts, otherwise you get penalized, having to track your toilet breaks, having to do all of that. So if anybody is doing that sort of job, fair play to them, and I hope their families appreciate it, because it's not an easy thing to do. But for me, I just felt this can't be it. There has to be more. I have to be doing more than this. So for me, it was like, I saw some of the people there, and I thought it's sad that they don't think bigger than this. They're just thinking that they have to earn a living. This is the only salary they're going to get, and they're going to stick with it, even though they're sad about being here. And I think what benefited me was my mom. Again, I'll mention my mom a lot, but, her, motivation, her motivating me to think bigger, to achieve more, to be a leader, seeing my dad successful in his business, the brothers around me who, were successful themselves. So I think it is definitely a mindset, and it's the people around you. If you're somebody who's maybe stuck in a dead end job that you feel is dead end, that you feel you're not really contributing much, or it's not giving you satisfaction, don't be around people who will bring you down. Don't be around people who will keep you at that level, because it's very easy when you're in that environment for people around you to laugh and joke about it and say, oh yeah, we're always going to be here. Yeah, we're moaning about how rubbish it is, but this is what it is. This is what our life is. If you're around those people, you're never going to succeed. You're always going to be, mediocre. You're always going to be at that level. Whereas if you start to surround yourself with people who have done better than you, people who have achieved more, or people who you can see they're working hard, go and spend some time with them. Seek mentorship. Just be around friends who are who are doing something different to what you're doing, and you'll learn from those experiences. Even just looking around, and let's say, for example, if you're in a role that you're not happy with, it might sound like basic advice, right? But go and look at what's out there on the market. Go and look at what's out there on job boards, and what's out there, in terms of businesses you can start,
Yes.
Things that you can do, that where you can be in control of your finances, you can be in control of how you work, your working patterns, instead of having to be worried about being there, clocking in 10 minutes before your shift starts and not getting paid, all those things, and being moaned at when you're 30 seconds late. Take it in your own control, and look at what you can do. And there's so many, alhamdulillah, Birmingham is blessed of, full of entrepreneurs and full of people who have that spirit where they're thinking of ways that they can, you know, sustain their lifestyle, where they can, provide for their families, and it's on their terms. They can do it, they can pray whenever they want to pray. I remember the first time when first job I had after I started practicing, I had to hide in a stock cupboard to pray.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many people can relate to that. I started getting treated differently when I started growing my beard and started praying. And then, one brother said to me, Saleem, why don't we ask, for a room? Let's ask for a room. And we did that. And alhamdulillah, we were allowed to use a meeting room. But there was an incident where a few months later, I was asked to do some overtime. And I said, look, I can't do it. I've got, a young baby at home. I've got family. And the manager at that time, she said to me, who do you think pays you to pray then? But because back then it wasn't as easy to get your rights as like what you get now. Now the employers are much more open to religious practices, etc. People have more rights. You have proper prayer rooms and everything. But back then, I didn't feel confident enough to push back on what she said.
Yeah.
What I did was I just left the company.
Yeah.
But really, maybe I should have, pushed back and says, how dare you say that? I have rights as a Muslim. I have rights to pray, etc. I've gone off track. But the point is, if you're not happy and you're not really feeling fulfilled and you're not satisfied where you're at, who is forcing you to stay in that situation?
Exactly, yeah.
It really, it's our own mindset. It's our own, the restrictions we place on ourselves that will keep us in that environment, that will keep us in the comfort zone, or keep us in environments that we're not even happy in, but we just don't know how to get out of. So you have to, look at how others have come out of it. Look to those, who are successful. Look to those, at university. One of the things that encouraged us to think big was, we studied people like Richard Branson. We studied their sort of mindset, their way of thinking. Obviously they're not perfect humans, right? They've got their faults, but there's a reason why they've been successful in the dunya terms. Because they have goals, they have aspirations, they think big. They're not happy to settle for a mediocre lifestyle. And lots of them have a purpose behind what they do. They want to do more than just make money. You see many wealthy people, and money is not the motivator for them. Yeah, they'll enjoy the money, but it's not the main motivator. They want to create something. They want to achieve something. Engineers. People. In the tech space. I was just reading earlier today on LinkedIn. There's a brother who put out a post there saying, with his skills that he's developed, he found that there was lots of Arabic language videos, Islamic videos on YouTube without translations. So he created something, platform where somebody can type in the URL of the video. It will provide a full transcript within 2 minutes or less than that, and that will open up. People can access content they wouldn't have otherwise accessed previously because it wasn't translated. And he did that, so that, he put his skills to use for the benefit of the ummah, right? And there should be more of that, and we should encourage that. And if people want to do it as a business, they need to get paid for it as well.
Of course, yeah.
They need to earn a living for their families. So I think the ideal situation is where you can use your skills or develop skills where you can benefit yourself, your families, and the ummah, and the wider community, earn a living from it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And either there's that, or you stay in that comfort zone, or you stay in that environment which you're unhappy with, and you continue working in those environments for 40, 50 years, and you realize, what, I spent a lot of time doing things I didn't like, I didn't enjoy. I sacrificed time with my family for that, and there's not really much fulfillment. Or you can do something special, and you can think bigger and move out of that comfort zone.
Of course, and there's two things I want to touch upon. The first one is actually praying whilst it's work time. I was a manager actually, and there'd be many people that are working on the lines. They'd be going for prayers, but how quick do they come back, right? Of course, make sure that you're able to pray, but then you come back. And the last thing that you ever want is people taking advantage of that. And it's so important because Like, let's say I've got a manager and I say to my manager, I'm going to go pray. You always pray also. And then, but we'll take it turn by turn, let's say. I go and I come back after half an hour. If the manager is a non-Muslim, they're going to be like, "Oh, how come he's gone for that long,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a case where, like, yes, we've got a responsibility and obligation that we do need to pray our 5 times salah. If that does fall during work times, we have to be sensible and we have to understand our actions can really affect other Muslims
Of
around us
course.
that don't want to, that are really grateful for the opportunity where they're able to pray whilst it's work time. So yeah, that's so important. But then the second thing I want to touch upon is, so in my previous role, I was a manager and then I had a operator and I was speaking to him and I said, "Why are you so sad for?" He was so sad. He was moping around. He wasn't happy with his job. So I asked him, "What's wrong with you?" And he said to me that, "Oh, Riz, I'm not, I'm just not happy, man." So I said, "What? You want to go home?" He said, "Yeah." So why didn't you go home? No, literally as
Yeah.
simple as that. And by the way, you have to be understandable. Where if he was 40, 50, he's got
Yeah,
family,
yeah.
he's got kids. There is different ways where you have to navigate the situation. For example, yourself, you're in a job where you wanted a bit more, so it's not like you just packed the whole thing up because you got family to look after. So you did make sure that in your spare time, which is your time, you increase your skills through education, right?
Yeah.
So in his case, he was very young, and he was only 19, 20. He wasn't married or anything like that. That's why I did give him that advice. And it's the truth. Like, if you're not
Yeah.
happy in the situation you're in, just leave,
Yeah.
and do something that you're happy with. And there's more than one benefit because if you're not happy and you're in that place, it affects other people, it affects the morale, and other people actually get consumed by the way you're feeling, and then the last thing that you want is everyone's depressed, and the productivity goes right to the bottom. So yeah, it is so important that mental health so important, and even if whatever you're doing, it might not be the one. Just ask yourself the question, and I used to ask myself the question actually before. I used to clock it. I've done many jobs, by the way, where I've clocked in, clocked
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
A lot of factory warehousing jobs during my university,
Yeah.
but I'd always ask myself, like, why am I here? And a lot of the times it could be because I'm saving up real money because I want to buy a car, for my insurance. So I do have a little end goal in mind.
Yeah.
But it was never the case where I'm doing this, I'm trading my time away. I'm not happy with it, but I'm still gonna stay there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do see that quite
I
a bit.
think a
Yeah.
lot of people that they don't have that conversation with themselves. They don't ask
It's a
themselves,
reflection,
"Why
isn't it?
am I
Yeah.
here?" They don't, even speaking to Allah and saying, "Allah, give me better than this," sort of thing. It's just, I've worked with a lot of young people, and it's just literally, because we need to earn money, we need to pay for this, we need to pay for rent, or we need to do this, we need to do that, and there's no questioning of what you can be, what you can do, which is greater than that. Obviously everybody has aspirations. They want to earn money. A lot of young people, they see people earn quick money, or it seems like quick money, as like sports stars or rappers or artists, etc., all those sort of things. And they see people get money quickly, and even drug dealers, and they see and they think, okay, we'd love to have that sort of money so we can splash out, sort of thing. But then how do you get there? Because not everybody's going to do that. How do you get there, or how can you be successful doing it the right way? What are the steps you need to take? And that's why I think it's really important for, like, elders within the community, people who are experienced, who have gone through struggles, to share their experiences. I mean, that's one of the main reasons I came on this podcast as well. For anybody else who, your experiences, you don't know who they're going to benefit. Maybe one person will pick up something from what you've said or what you've gone through in your life, and it will make them think, actually, you know what, I haven't thought about that before. And it can completely change their way of thinking, completely change their life. And I think you have to people gave me that time. There's people in my life who gave me time, gave me advice, even when I didn't want to listen to it, and invested that time to help me, because they saw something, they saw some sort of potential, and they tried to advise me, or they spent time. And I, looking back at it now, I appreciate that so much. And that's, and also I throughout my life, I've seen other people give that time to people. For example, I was a football coach up until recently. I've just retired, so I can spend time with the little ones at home. But one of my inspirations was a guy called Obaid, who runs a football club called Salty Stallions, that I was just coaching with for the last 3 years, he used to work with me actually in the council tax department, well, in the Birmingham City Council, and he used to also run football for the local community in the park. Not a proper professional structure or anything, but he used to just take young lads his own age to go and play football to keep them off the streets. And whilst he was working at the council, he basically used football as a vehicle to get them into employment. So he went and suggested it to the council, whoever was the leadership at that time, that look, I'm running a football thing. It's not a professional setup thing, but there's a lot of young lads who are not thinking about work. They're probably going to get involved in drugs or violence and etc. Give them an opportunity. I'll recruit. I'll find them. You've got a recruitment problem and you're not getting enough staff. They've got a problem in they're not, finding work or they haven't got any ambitions. Even just to earn a living. Let's do something together. Now, this I think he must have been in his early 20s when he did this, or even even younger than that. And what he used to do is he used to take these lads. He used to give them interview advice in his car. I remember him telling me about this, and I knew it happened as well. He used to give them ties and stuff like that to go and attend interviews. And he wasn't an organization doing this. This was just a young lad who had some care for the community, who had some care for these young people. And he set up the football club, as an official thing later on. Alhamdulillah, I coached, as part of his team for the last 3 years. And he's also set up a youth organization called P2P. And he's somebody that I look at and I think, you know what? We need more people like Obi. We need more people like that. He didn't gain anything from it personally. He wasn't out to go, and even if he was to earn a living from what he does, there's nothing wrong with that. But he wanted to see the young lads who he grew up with succeed. Now, he had that drive and ambition. He had the skills and the talent to do it. And maybe other people around him didn't have that drive, but he helped them. He thought to himself, you know what, I'm going to help them. And that's all it is like being somebody who's willing to support others. So he was one example. You can go all the way back to the best of example, the best of creation, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who would always give time to people and give time to people who are less fortunate, give time to people who are poor, give time to people who were suffering from racism, slaves, etc. And I think that should be part of our character. All of us should be thinking about how we can succeed, yes, but how can we help others succeed as well?
Yeah, and there's two ways to look at it actually, which is the coach, the mentor, who's potentially got this experience or this skill, and to make sure that they're in positions or they put themselves in opportunities where they are, giving their time and experiences to the youth and allowing the new generation to come up, right? But at the same time, it's the generation or the youth, right, that are 18, 19, they don't know anything, right? Because they don't have that experience. So it's they should listen. They should be curious. They want to learn. They want to ask questions. And I think it comes in a two-way relationship where a lot of the youth need to be that certain way where they want to take heed to that. And the coaches.
And I think it's less so now that people ask questions or young people want to go out and speak to people and meet people because everything's behind a screen and people are especially with COVID, kids getting closed off from society, not being as socially sort of like active and being able to speak to people publicly, etc. So I think there's even we may not see the impact of it now, but maybe in a few years' time, if we're not helping younger people, you may have a whole generation of young people who are just shut off from society, behind a computer screen, or and just shut off from everybody and not being able to interact in society. I think maybe years ago it was because young Asian or Muslim kids were worried about suffering from racism or suffering from being sort of like outcasted from society. And then I think my generation were a lot more progressive, outspoken, willing to go there, more fearless, etc. And now it seems like young people again are sort of like going into a shell again. So we need the elders and more experienced people now, from my generation, even from yourself, who have gone out there, gone out in the world, seen what it's like, find ways to hustle and survive and to be successful, and can then give that to the young people and say, look, don't waste your time. You're still going to have to go through experiences where you're going to have to learn and fail, etc. But why not listen to what we've been through? Because then you'll get to success quicker, hopefully, and you'll be able to avoid, save a lot of time going through the experiences we went through where we had to fail, trial and error. We're going to give it to you free of charge. We're not asking that young 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old pay us for our, as a consultant. No, we've got a bigger role to play in that. If you mentor that young kid, there's lots of mentoring programs, and you don't have to be on an official program. You can do it with somebody in your community. You can start with people in your family. If you see there's a young kid, who's 16, 17, and their mom and dad's always complaining, they're stuck in their room, they don't go out, they're not going to achieve anything, etc. Take that time and think, okay, you know what? Once a week, I'm going to sit with him and I'm going to help him. I'm going to try to motivate him, or I'm going to try and give advice, him or her. It could be a boy or a girl, and I'm going to instill, some of the values that I've been able to gain or were intrinsic to me, and help that young person to be ready for the real world.
A lot of experienced people, they know where the mud is, so they'll tell you, the youth, right? They'll tell them that the mud's there, don't step on it. So it's as simple as that, where the experienced guys, they've been through it, they've made the mistakes. But I think at the moment right now, especially with the youth, a lot of the learnings that they get is, let me buy a course. Number one, a lot of those guys that they'll buy the course of have no affinity towards them. They don't know you. So it's more of a case where they're doing that course because they're trying to make some money, right?
Yeah.
There's so much information available online where it's completely free. So there's so many resources that they can use. But also they think that it's just my close family where I can get most of my learning from. So for example, if I want to be an engineering manager, if there's no one within my family there, the next resource that they'll use is, let's just check online, ChatGPT, or they'll check online where they'll try to find a resource. But they wouldn't think that, let me actually ask a mentor that's 25 years in the game, where they're direct to the source. And I think that's actually the best way to go about it. Instead of going online, where you can still go online, but go on LinkedIn and ask the people that are 40 years, 20 years, 30 years advanced. And a lot of the times that they will give you some sort of learnings and experiences, and a lot of them will give you that time. Have you noticed actually people asking you on LinkedIn and stuff like?
Yeah. So for example, I'm here because you messaged me on LinkedIn, right?
Yes.
And you reached out. Why did you message me?
Good question. You know what? When I messaged you on LinkedIn, and I've started.
Did you get the wrong person?
I've actually messaged now a couple of people, right? You're definitely special, but we do have that from. So I do get like the fears that people have, which is the person's so busy and that why would he give me that time of day? But if you don't ask, you never know.
True.
And why I asked you is because I saw like your backgrounds, what your CV is, because on LinkedIn your entire your work experiences, what you're up to, a lot of the posts that you do, I can see all of that. And again, with my podcast, these are the type of guests that I do want. So again, that was the reason. So but yeah, so I just knew that you were a good fit to be on the podcast. But yeah, using LinkedIn, and that's a prime example of that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many. I see more younger people using it, but I don't know if it's like the place to go for many younger people. Let's say under 20, 25. But I one of the first things I said to my son, who's 21 now, was create a LinkedIn profile. He's a youth worker. Well, he's become a teacher now, but he started off as a youth worker, and I said to him, start telling your story, start telling people what you're doing as a youth worker, tell people about the things you're achieving, because you might not see it now, but later on people will know about you when they hear your name. They've already seen the journey you've been on, they've seen the activities you've been doing, they've seen and that's a way to put yourself out there. Personal branding, it's not that you're boasting about what you're doing and showing off about what you're doing, but if you're not telling people about what you're doing, they're not going to know who you are. You're not going to benefit. Then people aren't going to benefit from you. Whereas if you tell people, and storytelling is very important. Explaining what you're doing, the impact your work is having on people, it will open up doors for you. And for any young person, I would say do that. Even if, let's say, for example, you've only been I say only, but let's say you've volunteered you know, on a street stall doing a bucket collection, or you've volunteered in the masjid somehow, you volunteered at a local football club, etc., and you put that onto LinkedIn and you show people that, this is what I'm doing, and you show people that, you have to be genuine about it as well, because people will see through, fakeness. They'll see through fake stories. But if you're doing good work and you're doing things that will benefit you and other people, and other people will benefit by seeing that, why not put yourself out there and show people? And then what will basically happen is you build a network, like-minded people who are either want to be in the same space as you and want to work together and connect with you, or you might be in a different space, but you might see a way to collaborate with each other, just like we're doing now. I'm working in the charity sector, you're an entrepreneur. We're coming together as two people who want to do good for their families, want to do good for ourselves, and want to do good for the ummah. So there'll be many examples where you might not come across that if you're hidden away from people. I'm not saying it's completely impossible, but the more you put yourself out there and you make yourself known, people will learn about you. And I hope, anybody who's going to watch this or see me post about this podcast, they'll think, okay, you know what, who is this guy who Saleem's speaking to? What does he do? Oh, okay, he's got a company and he sells, XYZ, and that's his products and that's his speciality. Actually, next time you might come into their mind that, we're gonna buy from that guy, or we want to work with that guy, or maybe we want to be on his podcast. And it gets the ball rolling, and you never know where it can lead to. You build connections that you wouldn't otherwise have. So when I was speaking earlier about just being in those sort of like dead end positions and being in a living a mediocre life, etc., there's definitely easy and free ways to open up your the possibilities. And there's lots of people out there. You spoke to me about another brother who's going to come on here next week, inshallah. Another amazing guy who opens up so many doors for other people and doesn't ask for anything back. Why? Because people have done it for him.
Yeah.
People have done it for him, people have done it for me. So why would you not do it for other people? Okay, look, you can say people are busy. I'm very busy. I'm super busy right now, with a new role. I've just taken on a new role as CEO of Saba Relief. I've got 2 grandchildren now, 2 younger babies, 3 older children. Work, life, everything is busy. I mean, I moved house recently and I've still got wardrobes in my front room that I need to move up into the bedroom. So busy. But Qadar Allah, you dropped me that message, and I saw it as an opportunity. Why not? Brother's starting up a podcast. He's starting, he's got a business. Help each other. We always say that, these people, they help each other, they do each other to support each other. Okay,
Let's do it.
let's do it ourselves. Let's give each other the platform. Let's help each other.
Yeah. So it's been probably a couple of years since you've started storytelling and having your own personal brand on LinkedIn. Were you ever hesitant and scared at the start? Like, why do people want to listen to me? Why, that little bit of doubt that you get of
I get
sharing
that doubt
your
now.
story? Yeah, what's that?
I get that doubt now.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think to myself, I want to share something, but no, is there really any point in
Who
it?
cares about
or who
it? Yeah.
cares? Nobody's going to read it. For example, I'm quite active on my WhatsApp. So, people who know me and, people who I've worked with or come in interaction with me at Green Lane Masjid or a Sufa that I was previously at before I joined Saba Relief, they'll know that I'm always posting on my WhatsApp status. I feel quite comfortable opening up on that state because whilst it's personal, I've got a lot of like non-personal contacts on there, professionals, associates, people I've worked with, connected with, etc. But it is my personal space. If you don't want to look at my status, don't look at it. I can say that it's my phone. But I've heard a lot of people come to me and say, Saleem, I really liked your status, or I look forward to your statuses. My kids, they don't look at it.
They're not interested.
They flick through it. And then when I test them, I say, okay, you flicked through my status. What did I actually say? Then they get stumped, and then they're like, oh, sorry, Dad, I did look at it, but I can't remember what you said. So I have a little joke with them about that. But people who I never thought would take interest in it or people, who I haven't heard from in ages. I might see them on the street or, see them at an event, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we follow your statuses."
And they know a lot about you, don't
And they
they?
know a lot about me, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, who did I tell?
Yeah.
So you never know who can benefit from sharing things. I mean, some people have said to me in the past, you share too much. You're very open about things, and maybe you should keep it. Keep things quiet. One thing I've learned is try not to, especially where there's people around you who maybe envious of you or jealous of you, etc. You don't want to rub it in their faces when you have success or when you have happiness. But at the same time, we're taught that announce Allah's blessings that He's given to you, to tell people about it. So there is, you have to be tactful about it. You have to be able to tell your story whilst not being big-headed about it, being humble about it, joking about it as well, joking about your failures, and and not be not look down at people or talk down to people, but bring them on that journey with you, so that they can be inspired by it. So if for example something's happened in my life where I've become really stressed about it, and I've really got to a point of crying and not knowing which way to turn, and that's happened to me on many occasions, and somebody has come, or you've read something that's inspired you, or somebody has come to you. I remember one brother, I was going through a very difficult time, and this guy was super busy. He's still a super busy guy. He does events, he does marketing, he travels around the world. He's the sort of person you think that guy is never going to have time, and most of the time he doesn't have time. But when I was at my lowest period and I was going through some very difficult personal issues, he came to visit me. He came to my home, and we hadn't seen each other for a long time. And he just said, I heard that you're going through some difficult times. I just wanted to come and, comfort you. I just wanted to come and see
how
you
you're doing, yeah.
and just see how you're doing. Now,
Simple as that, by the way.
Simple as that. Now, that's stuck with me, and that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. And I make dua for that brother. Just imagine years later, I moved into a house, rented house, and I discovered he was living across the road. Because of how busy he is and how busy I was, in the 3 years we lived on the same road, we probably saw each other twice.
Yeah.
He was always traveling. I was always busy with work. So we didn't see each other. But the love that I've got for that guy, and because he took the time to come and see me, I'm going to do that for other people, because I know how it feels to be really down at your lowest point, and out of nowhere, somebody who you didn't expect to come and help you or come and just give you advice, just come and listen to you, the impact it can have on you. And that really motivated me. And he said to me, Saleem, just remember, when I was feeling really down and felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel, he said, Saleem, just remember how capable you are. Just remember how, remember. And in fact, he actually reminded me of when we were, we were younger. We were like, I think 11 years old. And at that time, I don't know why, we decided to write a letter to the Prime Minister at the time. I think it was John Major. And it was just a letter just saying that we want justice in the world. We want X, Y, Z to happen. We want, this, and that. Two young Asian lads writing a letter to the Prime Minister. You wouldn't do that, but, we did it. And we got a letter back as well saying, the Prime Minister really appreciates your letter. And, that sort of thing inside, that sort of like drive, or, being, something out of the norm. It was, that sort of personality and those characteristics, stuck with us. And I think that stuck with me throughout my life, and, years went by, we didn't see each other, but we remember those instances. We remember us doing those sort of things together. I'm going to remember for the rest of my life him coming to see me. I want to do that for other people as well. I'm committed to doing that for other people.
And I think, especially in terms of social media, I had a guest that came earlier. His name is Brother Bilal. He's got his own business, Shifa Rehabilitation, and he's based in Manchester. But one thing that he actually said is, it all comes down to your intention, and that's so important. So again, when you mentioned that about, am I oversharing? Should I put this out there? And a lot of it is like, what's your intention? Why are you doing what you're doing?
Mm,
And it's not about, sometimes you might feel a certain way, but look at the benefit or the impact that it might
yeah.
have on that snowball effect. And
Mm,
you're right, there's, especially on LinkedIn, which is a lot of business to business,
mm,
you might have a lot of the people that you've worked with in the past and things like
mm,
that. And you think, do I want everyone else to know exactly what I'm up to?
mm,
And you're right, though, on the other hand, which is it's
mm,
your personal space. If they're
yeah.
interested, they're interested. If they're not, they're not.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say actually that I started posting out content, and he's a
Mm,
TikToker actually.
mm, mhm.
And he came to my university, and he said I started posting every single day. And then at the start I was like, it's quite weird.
Mm,
What all my friends going to think of me? But then he actually met someone on the street, and they said, "Oh, I'm really happy
mm,
with the content that you're giving out. It's really
yeah,
inspiring
yeah,
me, and
yeah.
it's impacting me." And and he said that there's no one ever really going on the street going to say to you, "Oh, I hate what you're doing. Why are you doing
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Shut that off." And I think sometimes it's the mind games that you play on yourself
Yeah,
that stops you.
there'll always be haters, or there'll always be people that don't like what you're doing. Do they really matter in your life? How important are they in your life? If there are people close to you who love you, respect you, before you started trying to make it big or whatever, and you know that their intentions for you are good, and they come to you and they say, look, calm down a bit, or maybe you're not doing this, maybe this isn't right, etc. You can almost, appreciate it coming from somebody like that who cares about you, and who is doing it from a good place. They're saying it from a good place because maybe you need to slow down, or maybe you need to change your tactics. But if it's somebody who's just you don't know, or they don't know you, or they don't really care about you, etc., does it really matter what they think? Does it matter what they think about your content, or what you're doing, or what you're putting out there? If you're benefiting yourself, you're benefiting your family, and you're benefiting the wider society, and the most of the feedback you're getting is positive, don't waste your time listening to those other people. I mean, you mentioned LinkedIn and utilizing it. Sun Nagai, you must know Sun Nagai, right? He just posted just today, actually, I think.
For the first time,
On no, 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 I don't think it's the first time, but he posted on LinkedIn basically saying, "I can't believe I haven't used LinkedIn up until now. I can't believe I've basically stayed off this, thinking that it wasn't the place for me." And within a space of a few days of being on there, he said the amount of connections, the amount of people he's interacted with. I mean, he even posted there was one young kid who messaged him and said, "Can you sort me out with £2,500? I need, help me to be successful." And he wrote a post about Sunar guy wrote a post about it saying, I'm not going to give the kid the money, but fair play to him for asking. And like you were just saying about if you don't ask, you don't get. Sunnah guy basically said at the end of his post, he might not get the money from me, but that sort of guy will end up getting that money somehow.
somehow, somewhere, yeah.
Somewhere along the lines, he's gonna ask. He's not gonna have that fear, and somebody's gonna invest in him, or somebody's
Support
going
him, yeah.
to support him. Now, obviously, you have to do it in a polite way. If somebody's messaging you and saying, don't be a loser. You've helped yourself. You've been successful. Why aren't you helping other people? And attacking somebody before they've even offered to help you. That sort of mentality, or that approach is wrong. But if you genuine and you ask somebody, for support, and if you got an idea, you got a proposal, like you said, if you don't ask, you don't get. In the charity sector, we know that the donations will come, that Allah will provide the donation somehow, somewhere, for the people we serve to be supported, whether it's in Yemen, in Gaza, wherever it is, the donations will come. But it's the people who give it who are in need of it more than the ones who receive it. Because we give it because we want to Allah to have mercy on us. We want to have barakah in our lives. We want to have success in our lives. And you do it for that reason, but we still have to ask. You still have to ask, and it's amazing how many times where we've, whether it was whether Saba Relief now, Sufa before, Green Lane, where you worry, are people going to give towards X campaign? Are people going to give, considering they've been giving to so many other causes, or we've been asking so much for them? And out of nowhere, you'll find people just give, but you have to ask. You have to do the marketing, you have to do the fundraising, you have to put yourself out there, you have to tell the stories about what your charity is doing, how you're going about it. And if you don't do that, you have to put the effort in. It's part of our deen that you can't just expect your risk to fall. into your hands. Allah teaches us to go out there and go out and work, go out and seek, your provisions, just like the birds do. They go out in the day and they go and seek their provisions. Allah provides for them, and they come back and they have it. So the same way, that's a duty upon us to try and go out there and to earn a living, and to to benefit ourselves. So one of the ways to do that, like we were just talking about, use the platforms that are out there. So many young people are using TikTok, young and old people using TikTok. I mean, my wife jokes about it. She says there's so many silly people doing silly things on TikTok, and they're making lots of money, and they become very famous, etc. And we're sitting here, and we're nowhere near as famous as them. That's up to them. I'm not going to go start doing silly things on TikTok, but it just goes to show people are savvy enough to see an opportunity, see that there's a market for something. They put themselves out there. They get in front of a camera, and it doesn't always have to be in front of a camera. They meet with people. Part of putting yourself out there is that you don't just sit there waiting for an opportunity to come to you. You'll send a message behind the scenes on LinkedIn. You'll message somebody via their website. You'll go to a business owner. You'll go into their store and you'll say, look, I want an opportunity, or I need some mentoring. I've seen how successful you've been. Can you spare me like one day a month, or 2 hours in a month, where you can give me some advice on starting a business or how I can go about it?
It's a case of just being proactive, isn't it? How was it like then at Green Lane Masjid, right? So you were head of operations, and you got the job. Was it just pre-COVID, and then it was COVID straight away?
Yeah.
How was that?
So the role that I was recruited for was head of youth and welfare. So all the welfare activities, the domestic violence, cancer support, youth work, etc. I think it was I started on the 16th of January 2020. On the 27th of January, my wife had a miscarriage. We lost our baby at 8 months into the pregnancy. A couple of weeks later, then I went for Umrah, and then a few weeks after that, COVID hit, and there was a complete lockdown. One of the projects I was responsible for was the Green Lane Umrah. So we had booked, one of my job was to book it all out, sell it all out. So we had 50 people all booked. We had, I think there was about 10 reverts who we were giving the Umrah for free to. And, I had to call every single one and say, sorry, you're not going because of COVID. The flights have all been cancelled. Saudi have said there's no flights, etc. And I was really gutted for everybody because I'd just been recently. And then soon after that, we didn't know what to expect with COVID. But what basically happened was our welfare services, went into overdrive, meaning, the food bank, which was open 2 days a week, became 7 days a week. People had lost their jobs. Lots of people who work cash in hand now, they were being let go because companies couldn't afford it because there was no footfall anymore, restaurants, etc. People were furloughed. People lost lots of income. Businesses had to close down. So that meant lots of people now needed food. They didn't have money to go and buy necessities, and it was a choice between central heating and food sort of thing. So we were open 7 days a week. The funeral service, so many people were passing away in the community. Again, that went into overdrive. We had to install metal containers, the big, large containers, and, set them up as mortuaries, as storage areas for the bodies because there were so many people passing away. So my day, every day, was me, being on one side of the car park with the welfare services, watching the funeral team on the other side doing their work, supporting each other, us working together. And Qadar Allah, as I mentioned, my wife had a miscarriage, and she became a volunteer in the food bank. So Allah used her in a way, and she was so busy during that time. We were doing food, we were doing deliveries to people who couldn't come out their homes. We were serving people in the food bank. So Allah used her in a way that she would never have imagined, but it actually helped her forget about what had happened. Both of us really, and it was just a very, it was a surreal experience. And then we embarked on a project with a brother called Zagam, who owned a factory, Loft 25, and he had he's a creative guy, amazing guy, and he had the idea to supply free PPE to the NHS because at that time, I don't know if you remember, there was a massive shortage. Doctors, nurses, they were worried about they were worried they were going to die because they didn't have enough PPE to protect themselves. There was a whole scandal around people making money from PPE, etc. People in government giving contracts, and Zagan Miller rewarded him. He basically, his factory had closed because of COVID. He opened up the factory to us, to volunteers, to Green Lane, to come and work on a joint project together, whereby we'd source volunteers to come and do sewing, to do packing, and creating the PPE. We'd source volunteer drivers. We'd project manage it, and basically deliver it to hospitals, medical institutes where they didn't have PPE. It was amazing because doctors, nurses, they all came on board, and hospitals were praising the work that was being done. And it all came from that brother being selfless enough to say, you know what, I'll provide the material because it's the same material he gets from Pakistan to run his business. I'll open up the factory, let you guys run it. We'll even create a website. So another brother, a very close friend of mine, Rayhan from Aaron Marketing, he created the website free of charge and says, look, I'll create the website. Another brother called Ilyas, who was, he's into, a Microsoft engineer. He got his whole team on board to create an inventory system so that we could manage where the stock was, how much stock was available, where it was going to, etc. And it was just a really amazing joint effort that really brought together. And there was lots of non-Muslims, Muslims, volunteers. There was people in villages that you would never have heard of, old ladies doing the sewing, and then our volunteers from Birmingham brothers going out to collect, batches of material. So it was an example. COVID was an example of where communities can come together and really work together to benefit each other. So at Green Lane Masjid, that was, thrown into the deep end. Lots of cameras in my face, ITV, Channel 4, Guardian, Sky News, whatever, coming, and asking what's going on at Green Lane Masjid, etc. What are we doing in response to COVID? And alhamdulillah, I think we won the Beacon Award for the best COVID response from a masjid during that period. So, alhamdulillah, and, we do it for the sake of Allah, but it was nice that, others recognized the work that was being done.
Especially with the COVID example that you gave, I think that's fantastic because it shows the need for people to be really skilled up, experienced, but at the same time where they want to serve people, they want to make a difference, and they care. And also, it's not just the experienced, skillful people; it's the people that were the volunteers also that did the job, day to day, making all those products. And it's a valiant effort, isn't it, between both sides? So amazing work that obviously the projects have done. You've right now actually used the beard oil. So let's actually talk about the products.
Yeah.
How was it? Before the podcast, do you use anything for your beard at the moment?
No, I mean, I have done in the past. I think I've got like a gift set that was tucked away somewhere that I didn't really use. But in the past, I've used different oils and stuff. But, my hair, alhamdulillah, is still all there because I never use gel. I just throw water on it sort of thing. But the times where I did use oil, you can see the difference in it. You can see the, how much more sort of like alive your beard feels. And I know brothers who, mashallah, you got beards like yourself, much longer than mine. They use treatments and oils, etc. And alhamdulillah, it's, it does really help. So, sorry, you sort of threw me off there with that question. I didn't know we were going to go to the beard stuff, but I mean, in terms of, it's part of our deen to look after ourselves, to take care of our appearance, take care of how we look and be presentable, and also for our wives as well, and for our families, especially for our wives, to look good, to smell good, to take care of ourselves. And what you don't want is looking scruffy, and so when you gave me those oils to try out earlier, I was quite impressed by it. The smell was really nice, fragrance was really nice to start off with. I did put a bit of it on my face as well, so I feel like I've got a bit too much oil on my face. But the good thing is, it's sort of like stayed on. So I think if you're going to be using it on your beard, don't use it on your face as much. But if you use it on your beard, I think it will keep it hydrated, and I'll definitely be taking
Yeah.
taking some home and using it going forward.
I was actually going to say, yeah, I do appreciate I did need a smoother transition there. But I actually showed you a sneak peek of the new designs, right?
Yeah.
Many people haven't seen that. So a lot of sisters, wives, mothers, they want to gift it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What's your thoughts after seeing the new packaging?
Yeah, I like it. I definitely, more life than the old packaging. Not that it's anything wrong with it, but I think if any of the women in my family were to see the new packaging, I think they'd pick that up before they'd pick up the old packaging. So I think you've done a good job in refreshing the design of the packaging.
It makes a big difference, especially for all entrepreneurs or business people, right? Is to keep innovating and not to stay still with what they've
Yeah.
got. If we do that, we be creative. We're going to make sure that we'll be able to fulfill the needs out there.
Yeah,
If not, there's going to be so many competitors out there that are constantly bringing out the same products onto the market.
Yeah.
And then the question is, why would they buy yours when they could just buy theirs?
True,
So it's
true.
so important, like to keep learning, keep innovating, keep adapting.
I mean, I've come across so many entrepreneurs, and sometimes you get that where they've got one track mind, and they think something's going to work, but they don't take the time to do a bit of research, or do a bit of market research, or go out there and do surveys, etc. They've got an idea and they just want to run with it, or they don't seek advice from mentors or other people, peers, etc. So I think that's really important, and I'm sure that you've come to where you're at by getting that advice and support, and I think more people should do that, because again, it saves yourself from a lot of wasted time, etc., investment, if you do that research and get into it. And it looks like, mashallah, your product's well researched. For example, you were talking to me about the brush, the beard comb. I didn't know that so many brushes out there on the market, are made from, you mentioned
Wild boar, yeah, pig, yeah.
wild boar, and you've done your research and you've looked into it and you've seen a gap in the market where you're providing a proper halal alternative to it. So it's things like that make a difference, and especially in a rapidly growing market for halal products, etc. Lots more people, consumers now looking for halal options. I think that's really important, and so you're not only becoming successful through your products, but you're also benefiting the ummah as well, which is, again, like I said, why I'm here to help you achieve that, inshallah.
It's so easy actually to be lazy. Where I was with the product, the brush, it was already with that supplier. I could have easily just let it go and be like, that's fine. Let me get that first batch out and see what that does. But trying to actually be, trying to put in more effort to make sure we get the right stuff out there, because we're especially being Muslim in Islam, it's very fixed, and we've got a lot of these different barriers, right? Where it's so easy for us to then cross it and be like, no, it's fine. But it's so important actually, ethically also, that whatever you're putting out there fits and aligns with what you really truly
Can
believe
I ask
in.
you a question? As a business owner, ethics, you mentioned ethics. So when I'm looking, or me or family or friends, when we're looking at halal products nowadays, we're looking at it and thinking, is it actually halal, or are they just saying it's halal, or are they just trying to cotton on to something that will attract the attention of Muslim consumers? So what's to stop you from saying it's a halal product and you're not actually going through that effort of getting a brush that's actually designed and created without using the wild boar products? What's to stop you doing that?
It's a good question.
Why should we trust businesses
Yeah,
when they
no,
say
no,
it?
it's a good question, and I think that's something that we kind of touched upon before the podcast started, which is trying to do things where it could be that the marketing is that it's halal. That's why you should buy my stuff. I don't believe in that at all, right? Of course, being halal allows the other Muslims or the consumers, right, that are Muslim, to understand that if I use your product, it's going to be okay for me to use, and it falls and aligns with my principles
Yeah.
and values. That's why it's so important for businesses actually, especially that are Muslim businesses, to move in that direction where everything that they're pushing out is going to be halal. However, with a lot of business, if it's a product business, right? So it's Sunnah supplements. A lot of their products that they do is there's a lot of transparency there, so the ingredients are there. If you might see like a new products that are rolled out, they might not have some ingredients. It's so easy just to ask the question.
Yeah.
Just ask the question. There's going to be customer service, or it could be majority of the time you'll just be speaking to the founder and asking them, "Oh, I'm interested in buying this product. Is what are the ingredients? Where did it come from?" So it's true, doing due diligence from both sides. Where, of course, businesses should, especially if you're a Muslim business, you want to be honest, you want to be transparent, and you want to do things the right way. However, from the consumer's point of view, it's like, let me make sure that everything's okay. But I think also it's education is quite important in a lot of things. For example, a beard brush. How many people would have actually known that? So if someone gifted you that, you'd never have picked that up and been like, "Oh, this beard brush has got bristles on there.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, where did that come from?" When I asked my supplier, actually, they would only talk about the handle of the beard brush itself. They wouldn't talk about the bristles. It's not like they were hiding it, but it's about us going into that more level of detail, pushing them more for it, for more information, than for us to find out. So again, it's a combination of
I
both.
think that comes from a place of taqwa, right? The people who I know who have been successful in business, who have stayed true to their principles, they could have done things differently. They could have hidden the way that they went about things, but they had that, God consciousness, that consciousness of Allah, that, what, even if nobody else is watching us, Allah's watching what we do, right? And I think that goes a long way in putting barakah in businesses, from the people, many, people who have donated to the charities I've worked with, very wealthy people, even people who aren't as wealthy, but there's barakah in their lives because they've actually, they're conscious of what they're doing and how Allah sees what they're doing, and they do good, for themselves and for the ummah, because they want the reward from Allah, right? They want to have that, they want the mercy of Allah. They want to be forgiven for their sins. They want to have success in the dunya and akhirah. And just by doing things in an ethical way and saying to Allah, look, Allah, I could have done this, but I'm staying away from it from you for your sake. They start to see the blessings in their business. So I think that's something that's very important for every entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, one word that you actually said was being conscious, and that's something which I was pushing a lot, especially at the start of the business. It was conscious consumerism, which is essentially like if you're the end consumer and you're trying to buy a product, to make sure that you've done everything you have in your ability to that falls with all your values and your principles, right? But it takes a lot of effort, and it is a struggle. It's not easy. So I'll give you an example. How much do you actually represent them? And that's so important. So for example, my brand strategy in the past was Ottoman inspired. So like the Ottoman Empire for me, I was thinking like, they're doing Vikings, let me do the Ottoman Empire. And I thought that was really good. So if you see a lot of my products, it'd be like the Ottoman grooming collection. Then I found out very early that no one understands this. No one's interested in this. So my beard oil was called Sultan's Signature Beard Oil. And I was like, I need to change this. And it also doesn't fit with what I care about and what I want to push, if that makes sense. So I really care about high performance individuals, okay? And that's partly the reason why I'm doing the podcast, where hopefully the viewers, if they're sitting at home, if they watch TV all day, if they're playing video games, if they're miserable, they're not happy, I want them to strive to actually be high performing. So I was like, wait, that's what I care about. Let me make sure that all my products actually fit well with that.
Good.
So the main big kit that we've got is called the executive kit,
Okay.
which again, sums it up what I really care about. So yeah, so our branding's completely changed now. But again, it's all conscious
I think that's a
consumerism,
good
yeah.
move, and like I was saying, people will sort of like cotton on to is it a marketing gimmick sort of thing, and I think with the popularity of Ertugrul and Osman, people are all like jumping onto the Ottoman sort of like branding sort of thing. But like you said, you looked, you reflected on what you're about, what purpose you're serving, who you want to serve, who your target audience is, and and then you customize your product according to that. And I think that is authentic, right? That's where people will appreciate the authenticity. That that's what you're striving towards. The people that you bring on your podcast are similar minded people, etc. It fits in with the brand, so it's it's all, it's all authentic, it's all in sync. There's nothing that people can look at and say, well, actually, he's branded it like that, but he's something completely different, or he doesn't actually believe in the brand. People will catch on to that sort of thing. So I think what you've done is brilliant.
Another thing that's important is like, why beard products, right?
Mm,
Like, why do you care about this stuff? I used to work like 8 hour shifts. I
mm,
used to then be doing my
mm,
business. It might have been, loads of side hustles that I was doing.
mm,
So I was literally working 12, 13 hours. This was, of
mm,
course, before I was married, right?
mm.
So I was spending a lot of my time, and any time that I had, if I wasn't sleeping, I was working.
Yeah.
But the last thing was my appearance, how I looked,
Mm,
how I portrayed myself, how I represented myself. That was the last thing.
mm,
And looking after myself, how long does it take? Maybe like five
mm,
minutes, have a shower, and then apply some product. If you have a beard, it's
mm,
it's sunnah to have it.
mm.
Let's make it look good. Let's look
Yeah.
after it. Let's
Mm,
appreciate it, what we've got. And but I wasn't doing that, and it's a case
mm,
where like, yes, I'm working so hard, but I'm not trying to give myself just 5 minutes of my time. So
mm.
hopefully it'll resonate with a lot of
Yeah.
people that are high performing,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not giving themselves that little bit of
Mm.
time. Well, look after yourself. That's it.
And there's so many professionals, executives, high performers, Muslims with beards now in society, and we were talking about it earlier. It's a form of dawah to the people around us that what, this guy, that Muslim, is a high performer. He's well presented. He looks good. He smells good. He dresses well. And it gives a different image to perhaps any misconceptions that other people might have, and also within our own community is raising the bar of how we should look. There's many occasions where I think there's an increase in the imams giving advice to the congregations in that come to the masjid in the best of state. Come with clean clothes, come smelling good. You're coming to meet Allah, to pray to Him, etc. But also outside of the masjid as well. It's not just inside the masjid. When you go home to your wives, look good for them. Have a good appearance. When you're amongst your family members, when when your children visualize you, or when they're older and they have memories of you, either it's going to be, yeah, dad always had a scruffy beard, he always smelt bad, he always had scruffy clothes, or you know what, dad looked good, he was always presentable, he was always smart, good looking, etc. Always took care of his hair, his beard, etc. So all these sort of things, they might seem trivial, but they have a big impact. And as Muslims, Allah loves beauty. So we should love beauty, and we should try to look in the best of ways as well.
Yeah, of course. And the last thing I'd add to this is, a lot of, like, let's say, blue collar jobs, or entrepreneurs or business people. We've got this sort of mindset now where you have to get your hands dirty,
Mm,
you have to be hustling so hard. But at the same time, why can't you just
yeah.
look good? And it's as
But
simple as that.
even
Yeah,
if you're spending your 9 to 5
yeah,
in a coal mine, that's not going to stop you from going out, being clean, looking presentable, and looking good outside of your working shift, because those jobs, Allah has blessed them. There's blessings in working with your hands, and getting dirty, and then grafting, etc. But that's not to stop you from then coming out of your day job, and going home and being presentable for your family, for yourself. And even if you're not married, a good way to find a spouse is going to be to look presentable, and not look scruffy, and look like you care about yourself and care about your appearance. Because I think the opposite, the gender will look at it and think, okay, is he husband material? Is he, does he look after himself, or is he somebody that doesn't really care about his appearance? And now with the sort of like, people have increasing demands on what they want from a spouse. And I know lots of young people who have been looking to get married. And I have friends my own age who struggle to get married up until late in life. And appearances do matter. You might think it doesn't, and you might think it's not important, but it is important. I'm not saying everybody has to wear a suit and tie. You can be authentic. You can wear a thobe, and I'm wearing a thobe here. You can wear a salwar kameez if you want. You can wear traditional clothing, but take care of your appearance. Make sure your clothes are clean, smelling good, your beard's kept well. You've done your hair, etc. So it goes a long way.
and it's the impression that people have on you actually. If you look good, for example, like yourself, right, you've shaped up your beard, you've looked after your hair, and from the opposite, right, if I was going to go into business with you, I know for a fact that you're looking after yourself. There's a good chance that you look after whatever we want to work on.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you're not even looking after yourself, and I'm like, let me go in business with you,
Yeah, yeah.
I'll be scratching my head a bit. I'm like, I don't even think he cares.
That's one of my it's one of the minor motivations for me to lose weight, to get fitter, is because I'm a leader of a charity. I have been for in the last few roles I've been in, I've seen as a leader, right? And there's been periods where I haven't looked after my
Let
health,
yourself go, yeah.
yeah, as much as I should have. And I had to reflect on it and think, you know what, I need to be the best version I can be, as a father, as a husband, as a leader, an employee, etc. And I can't do that if I'm not physically in good shape, if I'm not mentally in a good state. So all of these things are important. You cannot succeed in life unless you invest time in yourself. And that's whether it's your spiritual well-being, your mental well-being, physical well-being, it all comes as one package. Allah's given us these bodies as an amana, right? And it does make a difference. And I've noticed it, the higher up you go, I've had junior roles before, and now I'm a chief exec. The higher up you go, the more people will notice these things. They will notice appearance, and I'm not saying that's you should be overly concerned about what people think about your appearance, etc. But it does change perceptions, and if you want to be successful, you need to be in control of what the perceptions people have of you. You're in control of that. You can either let people think that you're a scruffy, unorganized, disorganized person who doesn't really care about themselves, or you can present yourself in a way that, like you just said, somebody feels confident in you. They feel that, what, this guy looks after
Yeah.
himself. He can look after me, potential spouse. He can look after me because he looked after himself. Business
Yeah.
owner, investor. I'm willing to go into business with him because he looks after himself, and that means he's going to look after our investment. So it does play a very important role.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot now. I'm going to. So, what company are you working for at the moment?
So I work for Saba Relief. So that's a charity which is exclusively focused on supporting the people of Yemen.
So I was going to say, okay. So I was like, before you went too far, I want you to give a 30-second pitch about the company itself and how the viewers can get involved and support.
So I recently become the chief exec of Saba Relief. So Saba Relief is a charity that exclusively focuses on supporting the people of Yemen. There's over 18 million people in Yemen, in poverty. Over 80% live below the poverty line. And our aim, it's our niche, our USP, is to provide shelter, food, clothing, all the things that people in poverty require to have a chance in life. And the place itself, Yemen, is a blessed place. It's mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he praised Yemen and talked about the blessings of Yemen. And that is what we're doing. I've worked in charities, in organizations that helped many countries. Now my focus is on Yemen, and my focus is on helping to support the people of Yemen to come out of poverty.
No, that's perfect. I was going to say there's so many charities actually that also support Yemen, but they support Africa, they'll support Gaza, they'll support so many other countries. What's your thoughts? Is there so many charities now where it's quite diluted, or I don't know? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, I listen to what donors say, and I read about what people say on LinkedIn about charities, and there's a lot of donor fatigue where people are feeling like there's so many charities out there. Who do I give to? There's lots of commentary about charities, and I've seen people comment, business people who are successful, saying, why do Muslim charities not focus on a niche and focus on an area that they can focus on, and then let others focus on other areas or other countries, and that way everybody works according to their areas and specializes in those areas. So I think that's a good argument to make, and that's one of the reasons why I chose to work with Saba Relief, because they're focused on one area. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to improve quality. And I'm not knocking anybody that does work in multiple countries, because if you have the resources to do that, and you have the right talent and the resources to be able to serve the ummah in many places or serve people in many places, then excellent. But what can happen is when you're stretched across various places, various projects, quality can suffer. The impact that you have can suffer. So when you're focused in one area on your niche, you can improve quality. And that's what we're doing at Saba Relief. It's a very well established charity, known across the UK to be the charity for Yemen. And now my job is to come and take it that step further, to make it even better than what it is. There's a really strong team there, a really motivated team. And it's refreshing. It's nice to go in there and see how loyal, how productive the team are with such a small team. And now we want to, like I said, we want to raise the standards, improve the quality of the projects that we do and implement for the people in Yemen. And I think that's the place where I'm at right now. So inshallah, hopefully it's a success.
One comparison that I actually make is, being very specific. For example, the niche, which is Yemen, makes such a big difference, and it does improve quality. When I was doing events, I'd have beard oil, I'd have hair oil, I'd have perfume oil. So I'd have the full lot. So people would be confused. They'd be thinking, am I impersonating Sunnah Musk? They'd be thinking that, I'm impersonating someone with the, Korean skincare with my hair oil. And then also at the same time, I'd be having my beard oil product. So from inside, I was like, oh, I want to be like a top, beard grooming company, right? Or especially within cosmetics. But then the products that I was doing from the outside, the perception was, oh, he does a bit of everything. So if a customer does come, they'd be trying on my perfumes, but then they'd be like, oh, why don't I go to that store, because all they do is perfume and all you've got is your little bit of selection here, which makes no sense. So I was like, you know what, that made me reflect a lot about, I'm doing something completely wrong here.
Yeah.
What do I care about, number one? And number two, other people are doing amazing work, such as Sonomus. They do very, very nice fragrance oils. Why does there need to be another brand now also doing perfume oil and or fragrances? What is the USP that we're offering to the market? That's so important.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, I'm not offering any USP. I'm so generalized at the moment. Right? It just doesn't make sense as a brand.
Yeah,
So I was like, let me take a step back and let me cut all the other products and actually improve my product quality, improve my packaging, improve my products, and what the customers actually want, which 15, 20, 25% of the customers that were buying beard products would ask me, don't you sell this separately? Don't you have a travel bag? Don't you have beard wash?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, no, I don't, because half the time I'm spending trying to make my hair oils. So do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, it's good to be very focused with intent. So it does make a big difference, doesn't it?
No, definitely. It allows you to focus on quality, the service that you provide, and like you said, it helps you to stand out, from the rest. If everybody else is doing the same thing, why would people come to you? If you're doing something unique, something different, and that's what we're doing at Saba Relief.
What's the website? Is it
Sabarelief.org.
sabarelief.org?
SABA relief.org.
And at the moment, right now, is there a key project that you'd be like you're pushing towards?
So right now we're running our Qurbani campaign.
Right.
Obviously, we're all looking forward to Eid. We're enjoying the days of Dhul Hijjah. We're going to have feasts on Eid day. There are, like I said, 80% of the population live below the poverty line, and they're not going to enjoy meat or food on Eid day. They're not going to be able to. They're malnourished. They've gone through war, they've gone through poverty, they've gone through famine. So what we're doing is we're running the Qurbani campaign right now, where people can fulfill their obligation of doing Qurbani, but the meat will go towards the people that need it most in Yemen. And the same people, the Prophet ﷺ said that there are blessings in the people of Yemen. So it's upon us, it's a duty upon us to take care of them in the first place. If we're going to do Qurbani anyway, I would encourage people to give for the people of Yemen.
Sorry, I let you go on. Actually,
Yeah.
the viewers are actually thinking that Eid's already finished.
Okay. No worries.
So is there another campaign that you'd be like?
Yeah.
What other campaign would you say?
Yeah. So look, the people of Yemen are living in severe poverty.
Yes.
They're in need of water. They're in need of food parcels. They're in need of medicine. So throughout the year we run these campaigns, whether it's Ramadan, Qurbani time, etc., to take people out of poverty. We're also going to try, inshallah, I've just joined the charity, but inshallah, we're going to try to do more development work where we're offering microfinance to people to establish their own businesses so they can be on their own 2 feet without handouts, without donations, and they can then contribute to their society, etc. So, the more support we get, we can feed people, we can give them clean drinking water, we can give them medicine, we can help them to stand on their own 2 feet with the support of the people who are watching, inshallah.
There's going to be so many people that are at the moment right now, they do have that spare money, and it's a case where, yes, every penny does count, and yes, you might be saving towards maybe buying a house or anything like that, but it is so important, like, to keep giving away consistently. Actually, it's very good to give consistently, right? So even every single day, is those options available where they?
Yeah. So we there's, if somebody wants to sponsor an orphan, for example, that's a monthly amount of £25 a month. If somebody wants to just give a general donation, set up a direct debit for £5 a month, whatever it is, whatever people, whether it's £5 or £5,000, whatever your situation is, keep giving. Allah will keep on giving you more, whether it's in your business, in your family. You will see the barakah from your donations, and whether it's Saba Relief or whoever it is, give in charity. We know that sadaqah is a way to purify your wealth. There are many people there who for example, want to purify their wealth. I won't go into that, but if you want barakah in your life, if you want goodness and success in this life and the next, give sadaqah. If you're eligible, if you need to pay zakat, if you're a business owner, if you've got savings, it's an obligation on you to spend your zakat. So where are you going to give that to? You give it to the people who need it most. Yemen is one of those countries that has been suffering more than others, more than many others around the world. And, equally people are in need in other places, but we say don't abandon the people of Yemen. And that's why, my work now is focused on Yemen, the people of Yemen, so we can try to lift them out of poverty. The blessed land of Yemen.
No, of course. I think I'm about to fully finish. So don't be too wasteful with money, but at the same time, don't be too stingy.
Don't be too stingy.
And that's so important to get that balance right, isn't it?
Yeah, if you look at how much money we spend on a meal out, or on a snack, on Uber Eats, on Just Eat, etc., or just anything, that the luxuries that we're blessed with, that we have the ability to enjoy those luxuries. Don't forget, the people of Yemen. When you're spending £10-20, that can mean a whole month's worth of food. That can mean the difference between an orphan being sponsored and an orphan going without, which are small amounts for us in comparison to what the impact it has over there.
Yeah, this podcast has actually been going on for, I think, close to 2 hours now, or maybe more. So there's probably no viewers watching this at this point.
Yeah.
What advice then would you give someone like me then? Because I'm 27, I think 10, 15 years younger than you.
I'm 40 now.
Yeah, so again, so 13 years younger. What advice would you give me then?
I would say stay authentic, be authentic. Get advice from others, from peers, from the people above you, the people who have preceded you and been successful in business, etc., because they're going to help you to save a lot of time, a lot of stress, and a lot of heartache that you might go through if you don't seek advice, if you don't get that mentoring. And there are lots of good people out there who don't know you, but will want good for you and will want to try to lift you up and be successful just like them. And all you have to do is ask. All you have to do is be humble enough to know that you're not going to have the answers to everything, that you need support, you need advice. And as a community, we need to support each other. So all you have to do is ask and keep on getting feedback, because, inshallah, your business is going to grow. The amount of staff you hire is going to increase. Be good to them. Be a just leader. We have excellent example from the Sunnah of how to be a leader, how to be compassionate, but at the same time being just. How to be kind, at the same time striving for excellence. All of these things are possible together. There's some people who think, well, you can't have excellence if it means being kind to people, because you have to be firm with people. You can still be kind and still strive for excellence. It is very possible. So that would be my advice to you: is be authentic, seek advice, seek support from others, follow the sunnah as an example of how to lead a business, how to lead people, how to lead an organization, and and keep giving. Keep giving. Some of my closest friends, my one guy I went into business with for a short period of time, and he continued after I left. He owns a minibus company called Travel SOS. That guy gives sadaqah at every opportunity. One of his buses is due for MOT, drops £20 sadaqah. One of his business buses has had a flat tire, drops sadaqah. His mom's got a doctor's appointment, drops sadaqah. He keeps on giving and giving and giving. May Allah reward him. He's gone for Hajj now. He went for Hajj, and his life. May Allah keep him happy, because he gives so much and he supports so many people and helps so many people. There's no surprise. Like, I'm not shocked why his business is doing well, because how can it not go well? He's in the masjid for Fajr every day. He's giving sadaqah every day. He's supporting people who are in debt. He's supporting charities with their projects. A youth organization who can't afford to transport young kids from one area to where their center is, he says, no problem, I'll give the minibus for free with the driver, we'll sort it out. Those sort of things, giving back to people, doing it for Allah's sake, you'll see the barakah come back into your business.
Guys, this is the keys to success. It's so important that everything that we've heard is not gone to deaf ears. We make sure that we take heed to it, we listen to it, and we actually implement it. It's very practical advice that we've been given. So I'm sure everyone here wants to be successful. We want to make a difference in the world. We care. We want to lead a life of excellence. So again, a few of the things that we've got, and he's, a CEO of a charity company, and leadership by example here. So let's make sure that we're all able to, take advantage of everything that's been said in this podcast. So again, Jazakallah khair for coming on. To find us, it's Mumkin Motivation on YouTube. Again, our socials, mumkin.official. That's our Instagram and TikTok. Hopefully, I need to be a bit more active now on my LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn is just my name, Rizwan Maktir. So hopefully you should be able to see all of this information. We'll make sure we'll put it in bite-sized chunks. Just because for the people that are, that are only available for like 5-10 minutes, we should be able to give them that spike of, motivation, discipline. Is there anything else that you want to finish off with? Is there your LinkedIn that you want to shout out?
No, just follow Saba Relief. That is the charity I'm leading right now. And I hope to for the foreseeable future. So we have a vision and aim to bring the people of Yemen out of poverty. So sabarelief.org. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Saleem Ahmed. You'll find me as the CEO of Saba Relief on there. And I'm more than happy to give advice, to mentor, to help people wherever I can, inshallah, because people have helped me in the past. And I think it's only right you give back to people just as people have given to you.
He's a busy guy, but he still gives timely replies. So, honestly, we really appreciate that. Again, Jazakallah khair for coming onto the podcast.
May Allah give you shifa. That cough of yours, you managed to soldier through it. So
hopefully we've hidden it for the viewers. But yeah, throughout this entire episode and the episodes beforehand, there's been a lot of coughing. Yeah. But hopefully the editors will be able to sort that out. So
well, maybe show it to your wife and kid when he grows up, so that they know the grind that you had to go through to provide for them and have a good future for them.
A lot of people have actually said to me, last note is, you're not well enough, like just cancel it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's mental. Like if I have to cancel it, there's someone else, which is again the guest now, who's incredibly busy, right? And for us to find the right time, it's not easy. And also, we shouldn't say like this, but it does put an impression of the type of person that you are. If you give your word for something as much as possible, try your best, no matter what. If you say, and a lot of people have been in these situations where if you say that, oh, I'm ill, I'm sick, or anything like that, not that they won't believe you, but it's like, really, you're sick,
You're probably going to get it. You're probably going to get, or you've already experienced it, where people are going to let you down. They're going to make excuses. Happens a lot. But, you have to put, I think if somebody's asking for help, you have to put yourself in their shoes. You were in need of help at one point, or you might be in need of help in future. Don't let people down, because, it may be that you're going to need help one day. So as best as you can, my mom's voice always in my head. Don't let people down. Don't promise something and not fulfill it. Stick to your word. All these sort of life lessons. It's very important that you have that instilled within you and share that with others. To make our communities better. Think higher, raise the bar higher. Inshallah.
Perfect. Jazakallah khair. So this was episode 7, Saleem Ahmed.